Before we continue, I want to discuss this situation with you involving the offer for Kaio Jorge. In this video, we'll share key information we've discovered, as some are already saying Flamengo will increase their offer. And we're here bringing you an investigation throughout this video, okay? I don't know if we'll be able to do it by the end of the video. If we do, I'll interrupt the video and bring you this investigation. I might be at the end of editing and I'll bring you this investigation here. But I need to show you this statement from Fabrizio Kika, the one who's a stadium specialist and all that. The guy is awesome. He made an observation that very few people probably noticed.
Let's listen. What we're observing today. The Flamengo fan, for example, when he sees Flamengo going after Kaio Jorge for 30 million, he thinks Flamengo is simply inflating the market. The market is showing its power. I think, a bit more seriously, I think Flamengo is changing its role from price taker, the one who just accepts the market price because they're the biggest, to price maker, the one who sets the price. They're setting a new standard, and this establishment of a new standard has two sides, increasing the cost of hiring.
Check out the full episode on Barbacas, Rafael Cota's podcast, Who's My Partner. The full conversation with Kika and Mauro is there on Barbacas.
For athletes all over Brazil, it raises the standard and increases salaries as a trap for when the financial sector is implemented, when salaries go up. The teams that hire players, they sign a contract for 3, 4, sometimes even 5 years. So imagine that Cruzeiro, Botafogo, or any other Sociedade Anônima do Futebol needs to keep funding the team because otherwise the numbers don't add up. There's transfer bans and so on. And Pedro Lourenço keeps putting in money, the guys keep putting in money, Texo keeps putting in money. Starting in 2028, look at this. Starting in 2028, only 70% of what is earned can be spent on that. But the guy has a 3 or 5 year contract. So what Flamengo is doing is not just inflating the market. Flamengo is creating a trap for the SAFs. Look at that. This is very clear.
A trap for the SAFs, okay? If you want to follow this whole conversation in full, Barbacash, Barbatas podcast, Barbacash, go there now, subscribe so you can keep up. Let's go.
We have an economic concept called predatory pricing. So the example I used was the pharmacy. A large chain comes to a small town, undercuts prices to drive pharmacies out of business, then raises prices after dominating the market. Flamengo is doing the opposite. Flamengo is raising the prices of everything crazily. The other clubs will follow. So, can you imagine? The Cruzeiro starter sees Flamengo's third substitute and says, "That guy makes more than I do. I should complain. Pedro, that's unfair. I'm second in the championship, earning 30% less. I want a raise." But that starts a chain reaction. If one player gets a raise, others want one too, leading to locker room discontent if raises aren't given. So players usually review their contracts and get a raise. Great, Fabrizio, that will make the guy needed. If the 70 is set for 2028 and you realize you'll need to contribute more, otherwise it won't be 70, it'll be 90. I'm going to have to keep injecting money. The game is going to get a lot more expensive. And here's the thing. The guy is a billionaire, but money doesn't tolerate disrespect. I think Flamengo is setting a trap for the SAFs and for the other clubs. It's not like, oh, throwing 30 million out there because that's crazy, right? So let's price this higher. Let's raise your salary. Let's raise everyone's salary because I can handle it. When Flamengo has a recurring revenue of 1.8 billion in 2028, they can spend 70 of it on their club.
And here's the thing. Flamengo can pay all of that. And when people negotiate players with Flamengo, or when a player comes to Flamengo, he already wants to earn a lot. He already understands that Flamengo has a lot, and he already wants to earn a lot. And Fabrizio, Kika, Barba, guys, once again, go to Barbacast and watch the full thing. Mauro, there's something we need to talk about. BAP himself talked about the 1 billion he has to spend on soccer. In other words, the Sociedade Anônima do Futebol trap is very clear because any Sociedade Anônima do Futebol that enters Brazilian soccer knows, hold on, to compete with Flamengo, I have to put 1 billion into soccer in 2 years. It's not about making 1 billion in 6 years like with Fluminense and others, or spending 1 billion in 2 years. In soccer, which has a strong squad, It's my friends, Flamengo. And Flamengo is expected to earn 2 billion, 2 billion, 2 billion, 2 billion. And with that, you can spend a lot, right? 70. BAP is doing what he knows, what he can do. The others, let's keep going here. And
Cruzeiro will have what, 400, 700? It's only going to be 70 to keep playing. He'll have to put in 300 million, another 300 million to get to 70. For me, it's what Flamengo is doing. I don't think Flamengo is just showing off. Flamengo has this. I think it's a common corporate strategy in the corporate market that Flamengo is using.
man, spectacular, right? Spectacular. I had to start this video with that explosion, huh? That's fantastic. Thanks, Barba. Thanks for letting us react. The content is a collab video, by the way, so you can check it out on BarbaCast. Fabricio Kika is always perfect. Let's watch the video. Everyone's leaving Botafogo, man. The last one out, turn off the lights, and now it's Arthur too, who's leaving for Olympique de Marseille. Man, this is crazy, huh? The guys are desperate. Botafogo fans, look, another player is on Flamengo's radar, another forward. We did some research, and this player is on their scouting list, okay? I spoke with a source connected to the board who explained that he's not really on Flamengo's radar, but it's another player that Flamengo has on their scouting list. They're evaluating him. It's another option that we'll bring here. There are a lot of situations. Flamengo is playing with several pieces on the board. We're always here trying to investigate to bring you everything, right? To bring you everything, whether it happens or not. Always committed to the truth, to bringing the best information. We're also bringing you a lot about what's happening at Flamengo during this preparation. They're about to receive their first new signing, right? The first new signing for coach Felipe Luis. Felipe Luis already knows when this new player will arrive. So we're bringing everything to you, man. A lot is happening, and there are people talking out there, right? Bringing you exclusive news that Flamengo still hasn't given up on Kaio Jorge, but Cruzeiro doesn't want to negotiate. The vice president of Cruzeiro's Sociedade Anônima do Futebol Pedrinho's son has already said they won't negotiate. We're going to talk about it here, bring you this information, right? Bring everything to you, talk about the news regarding Leo Pereira's departure, and we're going to talk about all of this here with you. The information about Andrew, right? The goalkeeper from Gil Vicente, who is indeed of interest to Flamengo. And all this situation that's happening with Botafogo, right? With the team being dismantled, the fans are desperate with all the departures and everything else. All this that's happening with Botafogo helps Andrew's move to Flamengo, right? The player keeps watching and sees that a lot is happening, that Botafogo has a lot going on. Transfer ban, they won't be able to complete his signing. If they don't solve this, John Textor says he'll fix it. Another night, another day has passed. It's already morning now, and he doesn't have any information about the transfer ban, about Botafogo being cleared. With each day, clubs competing with Botafogo for signings gain an advantage, as seen with Flamengo and Andre. If Botafogo solves it, that's good for them and bad for Flamengo, who will need another option, but there are already other names on the list. Goalkeeper Andre is very good, and we know that Flamengo is interested in him. In fact, those who were teasing and making fun of Simplicio's roots had to swallow their words and see that the information was real. I feel sad to see people wanting to make fun of others, especially when they're in the same profession. Bring the section here. We're back. Flamengo presence. An important piece of information that Vitão and I brought is that José Boto should be arriving now on the 8th in Rio de Janeiro. He said it would be between the 7th and 8th he would be returning to Rio de Janeiro to present the players. Who is also returning to Rio de Janeiro is the defender Vitão, Flamengo's first signing in the transfer window. So we already have the arrival date of the new signing. We already have a confirmed signing arriving on the 8th, Thursday. So it's important that we're bringing this information. Almost at the same time, between the 7th and 9th, Jose Boto will also be arriving to present the defender Vitão. Possibly other signings in the next few days. Flamengo wants to present them as soon as possible because there are important games coming up. There's the Supercopa, the Recopa, the Brasileirão already in January, and the Campeonato Carioca. And look, let me bring you some important information for us to share here. Now that Flamengo has checked, okay? Flamengo has checked on the situation of Alejo Vélez, okay? He's a player from Rosario Central in Argentina, very highly rated by the club's scouts, okay? This information comes from Bruno Lemos. What I knew was that he was on the scouts' radar. Okay, just that he was on the scouts' radar. I didn't have any information about Flamengo checking on Alejo Vélez, right? Alejo Vélez, who belongs to Tottenham and is on loan to Rosario Central, was brought up, right? Flamengo is checking because I brought the information that he was on their scouting list. Bruno Lemos brought the information that the agent confirmed there was an inquiry, right? From Flamengo, then, the forward who is at Rosario Central, okay? So, the player is highly regarded internally by Flamengo's management, also by Felipe Luis. I'm going to bring some important information here. Look, I'm going to get Alejo here. Let's get Alejo here. Vélez to get all the details here. Look, 22 years old, okay? A player who's in the age range Flamengo wants, right? He didn't have a season with many goals, okay? On Transfermarkt, he's valued at 3.5 million euros. He's a scout player, okay, guys? He's not a player who's a big signing. He's a gamble, a scout player. But it's like I told you guys the other day, I would trust Flamengo's scouting work. I would give them some credit since last time Mickey Johnston, the Irish Mickey, didn't come. And the fans were happy when Flamengo backed out of signing Mickey. But anyway, they signed other players, right? Anyway, that's not always going to happen. Like I said, we need the scouts' work, okay? So look, let me just talk here about the issue with Leo Pereira because we saw a lot of recycled news yesterday about the possibility of European clubs being interested in Leo Pereira. He has a 60 million release clause, our dollar 380 million, and is under contract until December 2027. Flamengo isn't worried since the release clause is high and no one will pay that much for a defender. This was brought by our team in partnership with Angelo and Furtado on December 3rd, man. December 3rd, okay? Actually, my son had just been born, Otto. He was born on the 2nd. And we have that. So the information that a lot of people started talking about this possible situation again, there's nothing new about it. Flamengo is not going to sell Leo Pereira. The information I brought, I remember I mentioned it here, is that Flamengo doesn't want to sell any starting player. In fact, look, people are talking here about the interest from Cruz Azul, from Mexico, from West Ham, teams we've already mentioned here that were interested. So Leo Pereira, regardless of the interest from these clubs, will not be sold. Flamengo is not going to sell him. And there's nothing new after Flamengo made it clear that they wouldn't agree to sell a starting player for those amounts considered accessible, like with Gerson. Flamengo didn't lower his 25 million euro release clause, nor Leo Pereira's, and wouldn't accept less. So knowing that the clubs didn't even make new offers, Flamengo got an offer for Leo Pereira, but he's staying. I've mentioned this before. There are offers for some Flamengo players, including Carrascal and Leo Ortiz. Leo Ortiz also wants to stay. Flamengo has a very promising year ahead with Felipe Luis, with a very strong squad. So Flamengo is going to keep its squad and is looking to strengthen it even more. So rest assured, there's no news about a possible departure of Leo Pereira, Leo Ortiz, nothing like that. Okay, guys. Look, the imminent departure at Flamengo is that Flamengo gives the green light and São Paulo moves forward. For Alan's signing, Bruno Braz from Universal Online reported that São Paulo sees Flamengo as more flexible regarding the negotiation for Alan. The talks are well underway for a loan deal with a purchase option. So yesterday, the information came out that it would be an installment sale. They were waiting for Flamengo's bank guarantees. But now Bruno Braz brings the news that it's a loan with a purchase option. Okay? Tricolor already has contract terms set with the 28-year-old midfielder's staff for the loan. There is still no agreement between the parties, but the progress means one more obstacle. São Paulo took the lead as both the player and Flamengo hesitated over finances. Criticism also arose about the president's issues. Flamengo's squad is still on vacation. They will return on the 12th. Alan has already received the green light from Felipe Luis to be transferred. Yeah, he's out of space at Flamengo, right? And at first they said he didn't want to transfer, but the information is that he does want to transfer to São Paulo. There's some doubt about how the deal will go, whether the purchase option will have certain goals to be met and so on. Flamengo should protect themselves. They paid a lot for Alan and shouldn't make it as easy as before. That's it. I didn't want Vina to leave, but he left with a purchase obligation, meaning at some point, if the goals are met, River, if he plays really well, they'll have to pay me. They should have done the same with Alan. Flamengo should have required a purchase obligation based on his games played. Otherwise, Flamengo overpaid, and they're going to keep paying. Man, that's easy, right? It's like giving São Paulo a gift from your mom, right? We also have Flamengo here. 6 months after the Club World Cup, Flamengo is the only team from Rio that hasn't received the 1 million payout from the government. Flamengo didn't get it. The amounts were announced as an incentive to promote tourism in the state during the Club World Cup, which took place between June and July of last year. Botafogo and Fluminense, the other Rio teams in the competition, each received a 1 million payout in October through companies linked to the clubs. Flamengo requested the payment at the beginning of December and challenged the government about the need to issue an invoice as a condition for the transaction. An excerpt from the letter is signed by the General Director, Paulo Dutra. It says that the condition ignores not only Flamengo's status as a non-profit civil association, but also the fact that it involves non-earmarked tax resources. So there's some confusion here. Flamengo didn't receive the amount it was supposed to from the state government, with the government owing Flamengo. Here's what you do. Take it from Maracanã, man. Take what needs to be paid from Maracanã and just cut it at the source, man. It's a joke, right, man? Look at Flamengo. So we've already said they're getting ready to bring in a new signing. And it's possible that on the 12th, when the squad is presented, we'll already have, besides Vita, 1 or 2 more signings. Flamengo is working hard to try to bring in the players so they can already be there, starting the season, the preseason, together with Felipe Luis on the 12th, okay? Especially because Flamengo starts 2026 with a marathon that could reach 12 games in 40 days, all right? They've also set the debut match for the main squad, which returns on the 12th. Like I said, the first free week in the schedule should only come in March. They're competing in 4 tournaments, okay? So Flamengo hasn't decided yet, and they're already thinking about preparations for this new season. After a year with 78 matches and 4 titles, Flamengo starts with 4 titles. They're important here, right? Not counting the international ones over there. The Derby of the Americas, actually there are 6, including the Derby and the Challenger Cup, right? So Flamengo could have a lot of games in a row, okay? Yeah, look at that. 12 games in 40 days, and here it lists the sequence. Flamengo and Vasco in the Carioca, January 21st and 25th, Fluminense versus Flamengo. On January 28th, São Paulo versus Flamengo. February 1st, Corinthians. February 4th, International. February 7th, Sampaio Correa. February 11th, Vitória. February 14th, Carioca quarterfinals, February 19th, Lanús versus Flamengo. Recopa, February 22nd, Carioca semifinal first leg. February 25th, Mirassol in the Brasileirão. February 26th, Lanús Recopa. March 1st, Carioca semifinal second leg. Man, let me tell you, this Carioca thing is a joke, isn't it? This Carioca thing should really have all the small teams play there. When it comes around in the quarterfinal stage, it's with 8 teams. The 4 big ones would come in with the 4 small ones. They'd have the quarterfinals, 1 match, single elimination, then straight to the semis, single elimination, then the final 2 matches, and that's it. The big teams would only play 4 games, man. 1 game in the quarterfinals, 1 in the semis, and 2 games in the final. Ferdi has no idea how much she's hurting the Rio clubs by doing this, man. The schedule is just absurd. They just had to set up 4 games and let the smaller teams play. It would even give more value to the smaller teams because 4 of them would make it to the quarterfinals. It would give them a better chance to compete among themselves and reach the quarterfinals. They could have done the Taça Guanabara, this championship for the smaller teams, and they would win a trophy or the Taça Rio instead of that awful Taça Rio they do now, which is for the teams from 5th place on. They could have made the Taça Rio for the smaller teams, the Taça Guanabara. It's the team that, or I'll even say more, keep the Taça Rio, because otherwise you'll end up getting rid of one. Keep the Taça Rio. After those who finished from 5th to 8th or lower, and then you give the Taça Guanabara to the team that wins this first phase. But the way it is, you can't have 12 games in 40 days. It's a mess. That's a joke. Man, I'm impressed by this, dude. It's just not right. Look, so Flamengo debuts in the Carioca at Raulino de Oliveira in Volta Redonda. Okay, so is that confirmed then? I'm going to bring you now the information I mentioned about the transfer market. Yeah. Look, Pedro Almeida, okay, he's a Portuguese journalist, has been bringing a lot of news, exclusive news, right? He posted exclusively that Flamengo and Cruzeiro are still in talks for Kaio Jorge. The vice president of Cruzeiro Sociedade Anônima do Futebol, Pedro Júnior, has already said that Cruzeiro has no intention of selling the player to another Brazilian club. However, Flamengo is not giving up and plans to offer around 35 million euros and include Everton Cebolinha's transfer rights in the deal. That could reach up to 43 million euros, right? Considering the 8 million that Everton Cebolinha is worth. It's regarding this situation that was published. I don't like to contradict journalists, but this is our information. I'm not denying anyone's report. Yeah, they shared information about Kaio Jorge, that Flamengo was going to raise it to 35 million euros. Plus Everton Cebolinha's value, the total would be 43 million euros. I consulted a Flamengo board source who replied right after I finished recording the video and said it's not true, that at this moment the negotiations are suspended and that Flamengo is not going to raise, at least for now, Flamengo is not going to raise the offer. And Cruzeiro themselves have already said they're not negotiating. Cruzeiro also said they've ended any talks regarding Kaio Jorge and Flamengo as well. Yeah. The answer I got is that at the moment, these negotiations for Kaio Jorge are suspended. This situation they're publishing about raising it to 35, that doesn't exist. Even internally, members of the board and everyone knows, even Flamengo fans are against Flamengo. Raising the amount isn't right. So there's nothing like that. Okay, guys? We're just bringing you all the information. And what I was talking about here about the issue about the issue with the Botafogo player, that's when Olympique de Marseille made an offer for Arthur. Fabiano Bandeira from Placar said the offer hasn't come yet. The forward was contacted by the French club to play for the team in the 25-26 season. Coach Martin Anselm expressed interest in keeping number 7. He asked for him to stay, but that just shows how things are. The situation at Botafogo, the desperation of the fans, with players leaving, right? Athletes and players possibly going to Fluminense. It's crazy, right? And we're here following along, remembering that Flamengo is trying to sign Andrew, the goalkeeper, who was almost set to join Botafogo, but Flamengo kind of swooped in and is now trying to close the deal with him. Exactly because of the financial issues, transfer ban, and everything else that Botafogo is facing. So that's it. There's a lot of information. We're always here reminding you to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications by clicking the bell, and leave a like on the video. Thank you for your company. Red and black greetings from Flamengo. Big hug. Thanks. See you later.